Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast as you're driving along in your car or your truck, or put in those earbuds and listen to it in public transport. Now in this essay, excuse me, I'd like to talk about it's all over the world, bellowing up and down the media landscape, the protests and some turning riotous in the UK, and just having a look at some of the background to it, but also the media coverage. Now, the entire media landscape, even media outlets that I would consider pretty much middle of the road, even they're using far right and thugs and so on. Why did they not use that same language over the BLM riots, which would cause much more damage than these riots are, assuming they're both riots? But why is the police presence so intense with these protests, but was close to non-existent with the BLM and the Antifa and the climate protests and so on, and even the recent anti-Israeli protests? They're all treated with kid gloves when angry Muslims decide they're going to barricade a police station. The police are powerless, do nothing. When Muslims go outside of Christian schools and threaten to murder the teachers, the police do nothing, and on it goes. And yet, as soon as some white protesters appear, out come the dogs, out come the horses, out come the riot police, and the police suddenly have infinite resources to deal with these white people, but seem to have no resources. In fact, they run away. Recently in the North England city of Leeds, when faced by a riotous brown and black mob, the police just ran away. They ran away. But as soon as it's white protesters, so tough, big and tough. Now, if you look at the political response to, again, brown and black rioters and protesters and people who damage property, burn buildings down, that sort of thing, barely a mention. Very few people get arrested, barely a mention. But as soon as white people start protesting, the senior politicians are out there and they're so big and tough. Oh, fuck, they are tough. Why are they not doing the same thing when these other folks riot? Now, if you look at the riots, the black and the brown riots, they're treated very differently in the media as well. The protests in the US, for example, or even in the UK and elsewhere, the Black Lives Matter riot, they're in response, to the brutal murder of George Floyd by evil Nazis. So whatever they do is justified because of the evil Nazis doing these things. So it's justified. But if white people protest, it's because they're racist Nazis, not because they've got any. So one side is given all the justifications, excuses, and reasons in the world, but the other side isn't. So we know that it's a globalist propaganda scam. So we don't need to really delve any further in that, just in the way that the news is presented. Now, I haven't found a single article on the international mainstream media circuit that is, well, not sympathetic to the plight of the British people, but is even prepared to suggest there's any nuance to the situation. Even that's absent. It's these people are Nazis, end of story. So that's the style of the coverage. So I'll just talk about a few here, and I'm picking sort of more really middle of the road in terms of the hyperbole that's going around. The photo of this one is a small number of police cowering in front of this evil mob. And of course, this is a tightly cropped photo. They're not showing the footage or the photos of police beating up old white women, or beating up middle-aged men and punching them in the face. That's not being shown. It's just, and they managed to get a shot of white men covered in tattoos, that sort of thing, and that's just kind of the thing they want. Now here's the far right is a term used twice in the first three sentences. Rioters is used 3 times and thugs once. And there were only 3 sentences in. So we've got 2 far rights, 3 rioters, thugs 1. So, I mean, it's already thick with propaganda. Far right thuggery is in sentence 4, far right activists in sentence 5. And sentence 7 is the brave police. The police are protecting deprived communities from these far right protesters. Any counter protesters are good people who are anti-fascists, anti the evil Nazis. They're fighting back against Nazis, just like the British government is and the mainstream media is. By sentence 9, we're at shadowy far-right groups. Ooh, scary boogeymen, far-right groups. By sentence 10, it's Nazi scum. Nazi scum. And then by sentence 11, we've got the swastika, making it obligatory. You cannot have these sort of media coverage without a swastika. Now, they couldn't find a swastika. Maybe the, the guy, the MI5 operative who was supposed to run, or the NGO operative who was supposed to wave a swastika around, having just taken it out of the pack. Or maybe the protest started too quick and they didn't have time to get the mail order swastika delivered. So they managed to find a guy somewhere who they claim had a swastika that was tattooed onto his head. That is proof. That is proof. We're talking about the far right Nazis and Hitler and so on. Like, just can't find this guy anywhere, but he's somewhere apparently. Yeah, sure he is. You're right. Then claims that all these crowds are making Nazi salutes. Yeah, sure they are. And there's endless racist slurs, misogyny. And one protest in one village that it was mentioned here that apparently in the protest, one garbage bin was set alight. Oh, the danger of it. One garbage bin set alight in this street. Fuck. The world is coming to an end. Now, there's no attempt to sort of really say, well, why are these things occurring? They're occurring because this is what Nazis do, not because anybody's got a reason or it was caused by anything. There's the implication is it's caused by misinformation. So they very neatly pirouette past the 3 younger children. I think they were like girls at a dance class or something like that were murdered. That's no. Well, let's move beyond that. And let's say there's misinformation saying that the perpetrator was a recent migrant and possibly a Muslim. So they jump straight to that and say, okay, well, that was the misinformation, set it off. That just shows that it's far-right Nazis. Well, what about the misinformation where you call all these people Nazis? What about that? No. When we do it, it's not misinformation. When they do it, it's misinformation. We can tell whatever lies we want and as many as we want, whenever we want. But whenever we do it, it's not misinformation. It's only misinformation when the other people say something we don't like. And if they say something we don't like, it means it's misinformation said by Nazis. There you go. How neat is that? So claims that police link all these protests to far-right groups, by the way, that lurk in the shadows. Ooh, that's scary. Also in social media that the evil Nazi far right should be not allowed to make any postings on social media at all. Social media, the narrative building should only be in control of the globalist propagandists. No one else is allowed to say anything. And only then will we have, what will we have when that happens? Well, that's right, an authoritarian state. Hey, but that's something separate. Now, a mosque was damaged, they're claiming, somewhere in the north of England, but the police then allow an angry group of Muslims to say, "We'll go," and this is caught on camera here, or caught on film. Go and take all your bladed weapons and just put them back in the mosque. So what? Mosques are repositories of bladed weapons. I mean, the police aren't going to raid that. Just put your weapons back in there. We won't upset you. We won't arrest you. We won't do anything to you. I mean, you're kidding. I mean, is that really happening? Is that two-tier policing on steroids, or what? Now, here was an interesting one from an international news outlet that is very sympathetic to very sympathetic to mass migration and so on, very sympathetic to the view that white people are the problem in all the world, and and it's not failed states in Africa and elsewhere that are, not that these people were in the Stone Age until just a couple of hundred years ago. Nothing to do with all that. It's evil white people. And so they're very sympathetic to some of the globalist program on that basis alone. So it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend type approach on this one. But interestingly, they point out that whereas Black Lives Matter and Antifa, all this sort of stuff, climate change, you name it, is very centrally controlled, organised, scripted, choreographed, that these protests, plural, in England, were, in the assessment of this international news outlet, at least, these protests were likely grassroots and spontaneous and grassroots. And this, they argue, again, very interesting, this, they argue, makes it more dangerous than any of the others, because when you've got scripted, choreographed, and so on, hatred of white people in white countries, and media coordinated and propaganda coordinated, then that's one thing. But when you get spontaneous crowds appearing over an issue that they all feel strongly about, then that's something that is much more difficult to control and is therefore much more dangerous. And that maybe gives part of the game away just there. And I hadn't quite thought about it in those terms, so if it's coordinated mass looting, mass burning, murder and killing and beatings and so on, that's okay, because the elites have effectively consented to that and have underwritten it. But when it's the same thing happens, even on a lesser scale, when it's not being consented by the elites, then it's dangerous. And wow. Now, they bring in, there are various like talk shows and current affairs shows where they bring in alleged experts, all of whom hate white people, all of whom say that Nazis are running riot. I mean, so it's hardly a balanced panel. So they say what's expected of them. Yes, it's all those damn Nazi racists. That's what it is. Now, just looking at some of the footage, there's a crowd. It doesn't appear to be, this is one of the alleged riots, there's a crowd that doesn't appear to be sort of violent. I can see they're shouting and there's there's obviously harsh language going back and forth, that sort of thing. A lot of expletives and the like. But there's a guy, I watched this, is a white guy with tattoos. He comes from the back of the crowd, like the crowd's sort of thrown 3 or 4 deep, and the police are maybe there's several meters between the front line of the crowd and the front line of the riot police. And this is riot police, batons, shields, the whole 9 yards. You don't see that sort of thing when it's a brown and black riot. Suddenly the police don't have that sort of thing going on at all. But I see this man work his way through the crowd to the front, and this is the front of the protesters. And so it seems to be just assessing and getting his bearings. Then he runs rather clumsily, in my view, into the front line of the police, and just on his own, not in a crowd or a group. There's no group charge or anything. He runs in the front line of police just as the media close in to get some good tight close-ups of it. And so they've got the bald white guy with tattoos fighting with police, and bang, they've got their sort of photo opportunity moment. That just shows the violent thuggery of the Nazis. That just seemed too stage managed to me. So that would be my guess, that's a setup. I would suspect that some of the garbage bins being set alight are Asian provocateurs that are doing that. I would suspect that. So it's a bit hard to disentangle it all, but that it's wall-to-wall globalist propaganda is without doubt. Now they could easily, when Muslims riot and so on, then there's all this talk. We call for calm. Community leaders are meeting with senior politicians. The Prime Minister says we will do everything we can to make you happy. And why do we not see the same response here? Well, the many British people have spoken. We want to listen. We are the government for all of Britain, and we'd like to sit down and if immigration is an issue, then let's talk about it. But none of that. These are far-right Nazi scum thugs. Whatever they want, whatever they do is 100% illegitimate, and it is to be crushed. But if you're writing about a career criminal, a violent career criminal thug called George Floyd, then that's okay. You've got a good reason. We understand that. We will bend the knee for you. So you have police bending the knee for George Floyd, again a career criminal thug, and yet here the people with very legitimate concerns who are not criminals are being treated like them. Very strange. Anyone would think it was part of the globalist script, for goodness sakes. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.